My sister-in-law banned me from the family photo on a trip I paid for, so I left her bills unpaid. Now she's broke, and I don't feel bad. Can you imagine paying for an entire luxury vacation for your family, only to be systematically excluded from every single memory, every single photo, every single moment? Well, that's exactly what happened to me, and trust me, the payback was sweet. So, my wife Rach and we've been married for 10 years, and we're both doing pretty well financially. We love to travel, taking at least 3 big trips a year, plus a bunch of weekend getaways. We don't have kids, and that's just how we like to live. For the past couple of years, we've made sure to bring Rach's parents along on at least one trip. They're older, and her dad's been dealing with some serious health issues, so her mom can't really travel alone with him. This summer, her dad really wanted to go to Miami. It was where they had their honeymoon, and he had this feeling, God forbid, that it might be his last trip. Rach offered to split the costs, but I told them not to worry about it. I was happy to cover everything. I earn well, and they've always been so good to me. But this year, Rach's sister, Ella, decided to join us. Now, Ella isn't in the best financial shape, and she's got 3 school-aged kids. Every year, after we'd come back from a trip, she'd get all melancholy about not being able to afford a vacation since her honeymoon. So this year, she just flat out asked if she could come. I agreed, knowing full well I'd be paying for her too. There was no way she could afford Miami. I didn't mind, really. Sometimes you just gotta step up for family. I booked everything, flights, hotels, the works. But from the moment we landed, Ella started acting weird. And by weird, I mean she went out of her way to exclude me from everything. At first, I didn't think much of it. We just arrived at this gorgeous beach resort, and after we settled in, Ella wanted to take a family photo. Seemed innocent enough, right? Wrong. As we were about to pose, she turned to me and said, "Oh, can you take the picture for us? We want just the 4 of us, Mom, Dad, Rach, and me." I was totally taken aback, but I didn't make a scene. Maybe they just wanted a photo of the original family, I thought. But it didn't end there. Ella made this the theme of the entire trip. Every time we stopped somewhere scenic or did something fun, she'd say, "Oh, just the 4 of us," or "This one's just for family." Guess who was always holding the camera? Me. Many times, Rach would stand up for me, saying, "He's part of the family too." Even my in-laws would tell me to join. But Ella left no opportunity to sideline me. The pictures she uploaded on social media? I was barely in them. It was so frustrating. I mean, I wasn't included in half the vacation photos, and instead of making memories, I found myself playing photographer or being the bag holder. Then, one afternoon, we all decided to spend time at the hotel's infinity pool. It had this gorgeous view of the ocean, and I figured it would be a relaxing break. As I was about to join everyone, Ella turned to me and said, "Can you stay out for a bit? We want a girls' photo, just Rach, Mom, and me." Fine, no big deal, I thought. But after they took that photo, she made sure I was conveniently busy with something else every single time the camera came out. First, it was just the women. Then she wanted only Rach, and of course, another with just the original family. If she hated my company so much, why did she even come with us? Another day, we went for a serene boat ride. It should have been a calm, family-friendly day, but of course, Ella found ways to make sure I was sidelined yet again. Most of these activities have 4-seater rows, 2 plus 2. There were 5 of us. Ella suggested that Rach's parents sit together in one row, and she'd sit with Rach in the next. "That'll make it easier to click family pictures and make memories," she chirped. That left me alone. Ella turned to me and said, "Oh, you can take the next log, right? It's more balanced this way." They even bought a souvenir photo from the ride with me awkwardly sitting alone with strangers. I get that one person sometimes has to be out of the frame, but why was it always me? She could switch places sometimes, just sometimes, right? Another night, we went to this fancy seafood restaurant. It was one of those places where you need reservations days in advance, but I'd taken care of all that, ensuring we had a great table with a perfect sunset view. When we got there, we were shown to a round table that seated 6. Now, anyone who's been in this situation knows the best seats are the ones facing the view. Naturally, I thought Rach and I would sit together, with her parents across from us, leaving Ella on one side. But as we were sitting down, Ella quickly slid into the seat next to Rach, and her parents took the two seats facing the view, leaving me to sit on the side with no view, squeezed between Rach's parents and the server station. Rach tried to protest, saying she wanted to sit with me, but Ella snapped at her, saying she should stop being so clingy and that it was a family vacation. I bit my tongue. Fine, I thought, it's just a meal. But halfway through dinner, when I tried to join the conversation about some family stories, Ella kept changing the topic back to things I wasn't involved in. She talked about childhood memories, high school trips, and inside jokes that, naturally, I wasn't a part of. Rach and even her parents tried to involve me by giving me context, but Ella would disrupt it and make things so forced. By dessert, I was practically a ghost at the table, ignored while they all laughed and reminisced. The next day, we had a spa day booked. I'd gotten a private suite for Rach and me, one for the in-laws, and a solo room for Ella. However, my father-in-law didn't feel well and wanted to spend the day lounging by the beach. I figured the four of us could still go, but Ella pulled another stunt. She said, "Probably you should stay here and give company to Dad. It would be nice if just the women did the spa treatments together. I want to spend some time with Mom and, just have a girls' day." I was absolutely furious, but I tried hard not to blow up. I'd paid for this whole thing, and now I was being told it was a girls-only activity. After that, I wasn't in the mood anyway, so I stayed and relaxed with my father-in-law. It actually turned out to be good. We had some great talks, and he shared his wisdom. It was fun and soothing. I wanted to share my anguish about Ella, but I kept the whining to myself. Didn't want to ruin the vibe. By the end of the trip, I had had enough. I was being treated like an outsider during a trip I had paid for. I could feel my blood boiling every time Ella pushed me aside. The final straw came on the day before we were supposed to leave. I pulled Rach aside and asked her why she wasn't standing up for me. I told her I felt like I was being treated like a nobody, and she could see how hard I was trying. She sighed and said, "I know, I see it, but confronting her will just make things worse. We don't want to ruin the trip for my parents, especially with Dad's condition. Can we just let it go for now?" I didn't want to create drama either, especially with Rach's dad being so ill, so I let it slide for the moment. But deep down, I was already planning my revenge. I wasn't going to let Ella get away with sidelining me on my own dime. The day we were set to leave, I told Rach to go to the airport with her parents, and I would come with Ella. She gave me a look that said, "I know what you're trying to do." I just smiled and said, "Sure you do. And now you remain neutral, just like you have been for the whole trip." She nodded. Then I went to the hotel's front desk to settle the bills. The old way the hotel worked was that while the room rent was prepaid, all the extra charges like food, room service, and activities were settled at checkout. I requested the manager to have separate bills for each suite, giving some random excuse about taxation. He obliged. I went ahead and paid for everything for my and my in-laws' suites. But for Ella's, I asked the manager to forward the bill directly to her. By then, Rach and my in-laws had already left for the airport because their vehicle had to be driven slowly, and they needed to arrive early to get wheelchairs and stuff. The manager then called Ella and asked her to come down to reception to settle her bills. She immediately rushed down. You should have seen the look on her face when the manager handed her the bill. She looked at me confused. I stood there with a straight face. She got a little panicked and asked, "You're not covering mine?" I just smiled and replied, "I've already paid for my family. You can cover for yourself." She didn't realize how much she had racked up during the trip. Room service, spa treatments, mini-bar charges, and all the little extras she'd been ordering left her with a hefty bill. She swiped her credit card, only to have it declined. Apparently, her credit card barely had half the amount of her bill. She was furious, scrambling to figure out how to pay. She occasionally looked at me with pleading eyes, but I had no pity on her. She got unpleasant looks from the hotel staff and other guests, which was so satisfying. I just sat on the couch and enjoyed the fiasco. I was ready to pay her bills if she came to me and apologized for her behavior, but she was too proud to do that. She voluntarily wanted me to pitch in instead. She called her husband, who wasn't thrilled about having to bail her out. The bill was almost his month's salary, if not more. After an awkward back and forth, she finally managed to get the money wired to cover the bill, but she was livid. I wanted to leave her at the hotel to deal with the mess, but since the booking was done under my account, I couldn't leave. I was prepared to face repercussions, meaning I would have ultimately pitched in if she couldn't pay. I had already gotten my revenge by embarrassing her, but she somehow arranged the money, and the hotel got us a cab to drop us at the airport. She didn't talk to me after that. To add to her misery, I hadn't done Ella's flight check-in either. So when we arrived at the airport, we were already frazzled and late. On top of that, she had to deal with the hassle of getting her boarding pass sorted. If this wasn't all, I got myself, my in-laws, and Rach upgraded to business class and left Ella in economy. I left her in the queue and got into priority boarding. When she finally made it onto the flight, we were already seated. She walked past us, but didn't talk to any of us. She was seething. The moment we landed, she went straight to her parents and told them everything, trying to paint me as the villain who abandoned her at the hotel. She made such a fuss about it that it stressed her dad out. She started to fight right there at the airport, crying and narrating how I humiliated her in front of the hotel staff and guests, and that I didn't upgrade her or do web check-in for her. I calmly explained my side. Ella had spent the entire trip excluding me and treating me like an outsider, despite the fact that I had paid for the whole thing. So why should I cover her expenses when she didn't consider me part of the family? Rach's mom, trying to keep the peace, just shook her head and said, "Ella, enough. We don't want to get involved. We noticed you cornering him the whole time. We pitched in to include him, but you had your own plans to sideline him. Now deal with it." Ella wasn't done yet. She accused me of using money to control everyone and said I was a horrible man. She looked at Rach and said, "You partnered with your husband to humiliate your sister, your own blood. You'll see what this man is going to do to you. He's going to sleep with another woman right under your nose, and you won't be able to do anything. You're blindsided by his money, aren't you?" This led to an ugly fight between Rach and Ella. Rach's dad, who had been mostly silent throughout the trip, simply said, "Ella, your brother-in-law has done enough for you. If you can't appreciate it, better keep your mouth shut." A dead silence followed, and he asked me to drop him home ASAP. I assisted him to the car, and then we drove off, leaving Ella at the airport. She was too proud to come with us. She hadn't brought her car along to the airport. She came with me. She might have had to hold a taxi back, which would have cost her a bomb, as her place is like 70 to 75 miles from the airport. I dropped my in-laws off at their place. They both thanked me for everything. Their gratitude was everything that mattered. My father-in-law hugged me for longer than usual, and it truly made my day. Rach and I came back home after that, and we were silent on the topic. We both ignored the elephant in the room. The next day, we went back to work, and life seemed to get back to normal. But the other day, Rach broke the silence. She said Ella was facing a hard time with her husband over the payment of her bills. He had asked her to pay every penny back to him, saying he cannot afford to save her pompous, but she's kind of broke paying it and also her credit card bills. Rach has been supportive of me, but she did say that maybe I took things a bit too far. Still, she admitted that Ella needed to learn a lesson. She had it coming, and I don't regret making her deal with the consequences of her actions. Honestly, sometimes people need to face the consequences of their actions to truly understand how their behavior affects others. It's a shame that it led to a scene at the airport and some stress for Rach's dad, but it sounds like I made my point clear. I know my worth. I don't want her to be my slave, but I needed some respect. The least I needed was to be included, right? Like I said, I was ready to pay if she came to me and made things right, but she was not ready to acknowledge her mistakes. Anyway, I don't owe any explanation for my actions. I did what I felt was right. Ella has never been close to me. Yes, we meet during family gatherings, and she visits Rach often, but apart from exchanging greetings, there were hardly any conversations between us. Yet, I didn't mind funding her trip. That calls for some respect, right? As I mentioned, her husband wasn't thrilled about bailing her out of that situation. With my utmost modesty, I feel the bill was nearly his monthly income, and no one would be happy to spend their month's salary on paying for his wife's extravagant bill. As expected, she painted me as the villain in front of her husband. Things went so bad that he refused to attend the Thanksgiving dinner at my in-laws because I would be present there. Every year, my mother-in-law hosts this dinner, and this year she wanted to make it special because, my father-in-law's deteriorating health. He declined the invite, and when mother-in-law confronted him, he said he didn't want to share the table with someone so evil who humiliates a financially weaker person. Mother-in-law then spilled the beans and told him about Ella's wicked behavior on the trip. She asked him to validate it through the vacation pictures. Anyone who sees that album would understand how I was sidelined. There was barely any group picture where I was included. I shared a decent bond with him, neither too close nor too distant. We met yearly on Thanksgiving and sometimes during holidays. I perceived him to be a nice guy. I've never looked down upon him. This thought didn't even cross my mind. After knowing all these stories from Rach, I was reluctant to attend the dinner, but I still went just for my father-in-law. Ella and her husband skipped the dinner. When father-in-law was around, mother-in-law said that Ella couldn't make it because they were traveling to her husband's parents. I didn't realize it was a way to keep father-in-law away from the drama. After he went to bed, mother-in-law told the truth. Ella has been fighting with her husband and has become unreasonable. She constantly belittles him for his low income and wants him to take up another job along with his full-time work. He agreed to take it, but on the condition that he would be relieved from the household chores and kids' responsibilities. Ella wasn't happy about it. Her husband had told mother-in-law the entire thing. I was surprised to know that she was working only 20 hours a week and expected him to take up extra hours beyond his 40 hours a week. On top of that, she wanted him to do his part of the chores as well. What an entitled witch. Mother-in-law had stood up for Ella's husband and tried to counsel Ella and make her understand the situation, but it looks like Ella has tasted the blood, and now she wants a luxurious life. Lastly, mother-in-law had to tell Ella that, God forbid, if she undergoes a divorce, she should keep the bad news away from her dad and shouldn't count upon them for any assistance whatsoever. After we came back from dinner, Rach and I discussed that probably it was a bad idea to take Ella along with us for the trip. Let me quote one saying I read in one of the banquets of the 5-star resort. Once you experience the luxury of a private island, you'd never set foot on a public island. The same is true for flying in business class. I feel bad for her husband. The poor guy is suffering. I hope Ella comes to her senses before it's too late. It's frustrating when someone treats you like an outsider, and it's clear you were trying to be generous despite her behavior. It's good that I went to the Thanksgiving dinner for my father-in-law's sake, and it's telling how much I care about family despite the tension. It's unfortunate that Ella is creating this divide, but it seems like the truth about her behavior is coming to light. Hopefully, she'll take a step back and realize the impact of her entitlement before it affects her relationships even more.